Another question I have is, it talks about sports venues, theaters, etc. What about golf courses, whether it's either public or private? I tried to fit the golf course example into some of the scenarios, and I was having a hard time doing that.
Well, we're talking about, the areas that are created. I gotta go to the definition of public places. Don't believe golf course is listed. And then you would also then be talking about enclosed, if it would fit under the workplace regulation, you're talking about enclosed by walls and windows, so that would apply. The specific reference I think you had to outdoor sports arenas, stadiums, amphitheaters, other entertainment venues, I don't. Okay, public place means that, again, it's the enclosed area is part of the public place definition, so it wouldn't fit into that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Olson here. Thank you. Since the first time I read this bill several weeks ago, I too had some concerns about the 50-foot rule, and I just want to make sure that I understand fully. Kind of following up to Representative Soderberg's question. If a home abuts a school property and is within 50 feet of that school, if there is a public sidewalk on that property, if I read this bill correctly on page 6, where public is invited or permitted, if public is permitted on that sidewalk, then the homeowners or the renters of that home could not smoke at least outside in their yard. If there would be a public sidewalk or some sort of a public driveway. Would that be correct?
If they're within, I'm sorry, you referred to the 50 feet beyond such school grounds?
Right, if they are within 50 feet, if they have a residence that abuts the school that's within 50 feet, and if there is a public sidewalk, or, that'd be the best example, a public sidewalk that would be on that property, that would be public use that would be, I think, covered under this bill. Would that mean that that homeowner or the renter, the tenant of that home, could not smoke outside in their front yard, side yard, or backyard?
Representative Olson, if I can interject, page 6, line 21 and line 22 should cover that for the full chapter. To which the public is invited or to which the public is permitted.
But a sidewalk is public space where the public is permitted. And if it's within 50 feet of a school or a property that is owned by someone for a private residence, I would suggest that this would be covered.
I think if it's a private residence, I think the bill is very clear that that is not covered.
Is a residence indoor space only or outdoor spaces only? And if it's a public sidewalk, so
Public places talks about enclosed, but you see if we have a definition of private residence. My interpretation, public residence, I think, is a public residence. And if you are in or on a public residence, you're fine.
I understand that, but if there's a public sidewalk within 50 feet that's on that private property, I think this bill could cause some issues and could have some legal issues. Then my second question would be also on the 50-foot rule, as I think of Grand Avenue out here, we have the Capitol on the south side, and we have the old Adcock building on the north side. Those buildings are within 50 feet. If someone is in their personal car, driving down the street, and they're smoking in their car, are they in violation of the law?
No, the privately owned vehicles are not covered.
But they're within 50 feet of the public facilities that are covered under this bill, public space that is permitted for public use.
I appreciate that, and I think it's very clear that private residences and privately owned vehicles are not included here.
But I think it's a gray area when it says if it's within 50 feet of public use space. I think that's something that needs to be very strongly looked at and clarified to this bill to report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there other, Lucas, sorry, Representative Lucas.
Thank you, business person, who's responsible for enforcement in this piece of legislation in front of us?
Well, it would be this, if a complaint was made and if the Department of Public Health, sent a warning letter or sent a, fine, it would be to the business owner.
See, one of my concerns in this legislation, you were taking private business people and you were making them essentially enforcement agents of state law.
Well, we do that a lot. Bars, we require only people 21 to drink, and I think we ask that in other areas. So yeah, the answer is yes, but I don't think it's necessarily overreaching.
Well, I guess we have some philosophical differences in that area, and respect for private property, respect for private ownership, the discipline and dedication it takes to run a small business. Respectfully, you come from a more metro area than I do. We run a small business in a small town, 400 people. You don't quite understand how tough it is for a small business owner to say to a friend and a customer, I'm sorry you can't smoke in here. The person that brought their business to you for 50 years of family has, you're making me that enforcement agent. You're putting me and people like me in a very, very awkward position, business-wise, employment-wise. Dan might say to me, well, Steve, then I'm going to take my tire somewhere else and get it fixed.
We can't smoke there either.
True. If that business owner is willing to play the game that this legislation sets up, if they are willing to be a blind eye, and if nobody happens to wander in off the street at that same moment and say, hey, you're not supposed to be smoking in here, I'm calling the Department of Public Health.
You're right, that's right.
I understand the intent of the legislation. It can be very, very problematic for small business owners and for people in those situations. Along those same lines, I have some very big concerns on the restrictions on private offices. I know people who own businesses, created businesses, with their own labor and sweat of their own two hands, people that built lumberyards, people that built ag automation services companies. They bust their butt every day, and it bothers me that they can't go into a private area and the business they created, the risk they took to create that business. We got government coming in under this legislation, basically nullifying a lot of their rights, private ownership, private property. I understand where we're trying to go. I don't think these people should be smoking in the common public area. But by God, if you spend $150,000 to create a business, take all that risk, pay your taxes on time, I think it can be a little bit overreaching to force that person to not be able to smoke in their private